And we're talking about different visions for the American people. But I let my sister-in-law beat me about the head and shoulders because all she hears all day long is how evil Republicans are. And I know you're one. And I'm going, wait a minute, we can talk policy, but it's way over her head. She doesn't, she doesn't care.
Because they don't teach history in school anymore.
Right.
And what they do teach is so wrong or out of line, it isn't even funny.
And
They
Republicans.
don't teach constitutional
Yes, sir,
history.
you're exactly right. And I watched Republicans eat their own. Michelle Bachmann's getting her head beat in because there's migrants. Alan West defended himself against that nutbag, Wasserman Schultz, and not one single Republican has stood up for even one. They just leave it on a twist in the wind. And I don't get that.
I'll tell you what I think a lot of your perception is if you think that part of your messaging mechanism is the media, you are mistaken.
No.
And as a Republican, in my experience, you have a challenge because a lot of, especially at the federal level, a lot of the media has a fairly distinct opinion on what they think ought to be going on, and that's part of the broadcast. And so when you say, well, stand up and talk, it's like, listen, you have to get put on the show. You have to survive the editing room floor. And you know what? When that doesn't happen, what you get when you say, where are these people? It's like, those people that are making the decisions in the production area and what goes on there and doesn't. That's part of it.
And you don't get news anymore. You get interpretation of the situation on news. You don't get the news of it and let it go and make your own decision.
You're exactly right.
Who else has got a question?
Mark,
Yes.
this young lady just got back from Washington DC, and she has a question as part of her major in journalism. She has to do an internship, and whether it's the state or whatever, do you have some suggestions or some advice for her?
Tell me what you were doing and what you're looking for.
My name's Lucy, and I grew up in this town, and I'm here on behalf of GUFA, which is Christians United for Israel.
Okay.
We have clubs. I'm on the side that is on campuses, because we see still a lot of anti-Semitism on campuses, and we have clubs, and we try to really just stay pro-Israel and kind of weed out facts and myths. And we just had a big conference in Washington, and the last day we went to the Hill, and we talked to Senator Dean Heller, and he was very supportive. He said that he doesn't normally support foreign aid, but he does when it comes to Israel. And we talked to representatives for Joe Beck and Shelley Berkeley and Harry Reid. And I guess my question for you would be, what is your stance on Obama's request to carve out $3 billion out of the 2012 fiscal budget for foreign aid to Israel?
Well, I think it's part of the 10-year deal that was passed. I think we're talking about the same thing, where they were supposed to get a set amount every year, and I guess it was $30 billion over the course of it. It's $3 billion a year, it's $30 billion a year, something like that, whatever it was. I think the relationship between the United States and Israel is a long-standing one that makes sense, one that we ought to continue to honor. All those sorts of things. Middle East, phenomenal amount of unrest going on right now over there. When we look at what's happened in terms of in Egypt, in Somalia, what's going on in Libya in violation, I think, of the War Powers Act, all that relates to instability around Israel, and then you add the biggest wild card, which is, a soon-to-be nuclear Iran, and that's going to cause other things to happen around the area. Other people who are not members of the nuclear club that are going to want to start looking at that very, very seriously. Saudis for one. And so when you talk about all that, I think, one, we have a long-standing and should be continued obligation to continue to support Israel as an ally, our number one absolute staunchest ally in the Middle East over time, especially with what the present administration has apparently favored with these factions of alleged democracy folks with ties to Hezbollah, Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and all that other stuff. Absolutely confounding in terms of what that poor foreign policy objective is if you think a stable Middle East is a good thing. And so I don't think that in my mind there's no question that you need to honor that relationship and continue it in a manner which befits how long it's been going on and should continue like that. And I will say one more thing about it is I was shocked when before the Prime Minister from Israel comes over to visit, the President goes up on TV the day before and basically gives them a little woodshed talk about what we think you ought to be doing with your borders.
Why don't you just give this little piece back? Ah, shucks, that'll make everything all better.
If somebody had
Right?
done that,
Paraphrase.
if somebody had done that to the United States,
Oh, my God.
we would have been, and I will tell you this, the Prime Minister did a great job of comporting himself and responding to that in a way that we want to talk about people standing up and telling the truth and acting like adults. The whole country should have been proud of that guy because he did a great job that day. So that's kind of a high altitude look, but that's kind of where I'm at. We just finished as a matter of fact, a white paper for the American-Israeli PAC. I talked with the folks out, they have a representative in Las Vegas. Out here, the region is in Los Angeles. And so that'll be up on the website here probably this week. That talks about that continuing that appropriation, Israel's right to defend itself, some of the 4 or 5 major kind of highline topics that are kind of in the news with respect to Israel these days. How long were you back there?
The conference, I was back east for a couple weeks, but the conference was 5 days.
When'd you get back?
Thursday night.
So have you come to appreciate the fact that we don't allow humidity in Nevada?
I left just as it was starting to really bake, so I got lucky there. It was nice to come back to the dry air.
Being born and raised in Nevada and going back someplace like that where the air is actually solid, the
Right.
feeling.
You can't breathe.
You're just like coming back, it's like, oh, this feels so good.
Can I make a suggestion for you? I spoke a few minutes ago about the news media and a couple of comments, and I presume you heard it. But if you want to see an example of what I was talking about, positive example, good side, okay? There's a magazine called Trumpet. Now, it relates like, what was Christian Science Monitor used to one of the religions, okay? Christian religions. Make no difference about it. They report the news the way it used to be done 50, 75 years ago by BBC and a few others, okay? Go take a look at it. The whole world news. They will relate things from Germany, EU, into Israel. It's a free subscription, but you can't buy it on the market, on the shelf. And take a look at what they say. We've got a new, potentially, terminology, the old Roman Empire.
Ottoman Empire?
I'd help you.
Not Ottoman, no.
I'm struggling too.
Okay. The Christian Roman deal that ended at the end of the First World War, okay? And it's coming back. He just resigned as he's in line. He is the man in line. He just resigned as the defense minister of Germany. Germany has more troops in Europe than all of the other countries put together. They've got them scattered around. The whole financial deal is in Germany. Germany and France control it, but basically Germany controls it. But you'll find, I didn't mean to get off on this subject, pardon me. I just wanted to, starting an example, but it'll open your eyes to what is going on in a lot of places. But if you look at the way it's written and reported, like I said, bypass when they do refer to the Bible and such a few times on the tail end of an article or something. But just the way it's done, and you'll see what is not done in this country today. Anyway, including Fox.
So are you a journalism major?
I am, yes.
Are you
You
going
taking
to
about
school down
poverty?
there?
Yeah, you are, yes.
Watch it, because if you take this and show it to your professors, they'll
I
find you.
know, I know.
Have you taken a vow of poverty?
Yeah, people give me a lot of pain.
Well, no, just as long as you stay on top of technology.
Right, yeah.
You can still make living as a journalist, you just can't.
And you'll get your picture taken with this guy.
It'll break the
It'll come
camera.
up somewhere.
It'll break the camera.
But I have a question
Cover's
about
blood.
federal job training programs. I know somebody who was laid off, went on unemployment for a short time, but then found a job waitressing, cleaning rooms, doing whatever they can do to work.
Right.
And that person knows, that they can't do that forever, they're older. Can't do it forever, so they went to the JOIN, which is the Job Opportunities in Nevada program.
Right.
And they were told that they made too much money. In the past 6 months, if you earned $7,000 or more, which is
In
not
6
exactly
months.
a ton of money.
In
In 6 months, you do not qualify for that training, you made too much money. However, if you got any kind of government aid, no matter how much you made, you would qualify. In other words, if you sat on unemployment for that 6 months and made $10,000, you qualify for job retraining. But if you actually worked, you don't, and made less, you don't qualify. And I verified that was true, that's their policy. What would you do about making job training more available to older workers?
Well, I guess the first thing I do is I'd like to know who the person is so I can speak to them directly.
Okay,
So
well,
I can
I'll
make sure I
see.
have absolute, and I understand that. But, so you have absolute good facts, who's the office, whose jurisdiction is it, a state office, is it a federal office?
Well, I
What's
was
the
told, I was told when I called JOIN that it's a federal program and those are federal rules.
But it's a state office
But
you were
it's a
talking
state
about.
office.
Well, you know what, I was around for 14 years when a lot of state offices blamed everything that you didn't like what they were doing on the
On
legislature.
On fed
Called
stuff.
Okay.
Well, I'm not questioning
Yeah.
what they said to you. I would just say, if I was a federal office holder right now, and that came up, it's like, who is the person, let's go talk to them, what office what are they referring to, let's get that person help, if that's appropriate under existing rules. In a general sense, I can tell you this. I think the primary upside potential for creating jobs in Nevada and also to lift the economy, those answers lie in the private sector. That's who creates your jobs. That's who builds your gross domestic product. That's who pays the taxes, which makes the public sector healthy again. You have to have a healthy tax base. And if you think that your tax base is assisted by trying to make more and more of that responsibility fall on taxpayer-generated dollars, especially in a recession, then what you have is a situation where you have businesses, like you do here in Story County. You have businesses that are struggling, trying to do more with less, trying to be a percentage of what they used to be and continue on until things come back. And when you start saying, and in addition to all that, we're going to require you to send more in when you're distressed economically for the federal government to try to do things for you, especially from 2,500 miles away.
Yeah.
You know what? That's counterintuitive.
So you don't think federal government should be involved in job training?
No, don't categorize what I just said.
I know, but
Are
you
you
don't seem
listening?
to.
Are you listening, media?
You don't seem to address the
No, I
issue.
want to know the specifics on what this person was told so that I know exactly what the issue is.
He's got his facts.
And so if
straight
you're
before
telling me that
he
it's a
doesn't get
federal
paid.
job training program that's coming from 2,500 miles away, then, you know, fine, we can deal with that. If it's somebody's interpretation locally that's got it messed up, then we can deal with that.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be evasive, but I'm saying, give me facts and I can deal with it. If it's local stuff and it's a state interpretation, then I'm perfectly capable of getting a hold of the lieutenant governor and governor and saying, hey, you need to call one of your guys in that works for you or girls that works for you, because this is what they're putting out to this person. And if it's wrong, if it's a wrong interpretation of the federal program, then it needs to be fixed. If it's a correct one, then it's like, okay, this isn't helping, how do we fix that? But I think you also have to show some finesse in terms of going, the answer to every question is not the federal government. Because I will tell you, in the 4 months that I've been campaigning, nobody has said to me, you know what? Federal government